What's up, everybody? It's Izzy, and in this video I want to explain why taller lifters will almost always have to get fatter than their shorter counterparts in order to maximize their level of competitiveness. So here's the thing. When it comes to taller athletes who can carry an impressive level of musculature, who can have elite genetics for strength or power, they're typically going to be recruited from a very young age to play professional sports. And that is because taller athletes do not need weight classes in order to remain competitive. They're just competitive in an absolute sense. So when you get somebody who's relatively tall, that has exceptional genetics for strength, power, and size, they tend to get recruited for pro sports. And pro sports offer just much greater incentives than anything you could ever do in powerlifting. Whereas on the other hand, shorter athletes who are gifted in terms of their ability to build muscle, to be strong, or have impressive power, have less outlets, and they generally need to rely on weight class sports. And overall, I think that you would find that there is a higher participation rate of shorter athletes than taller athletes in the sport of powerlifting. And we have to keep in mind that in order to be truly competitive in powerlifting, the first and foremost thing is that you need to have some sort of genetic gift for strength, but beyond that, you need to have a certain level of musculature. And beyond that, even further, because there's more short athletes participating in the sport of powerlifting, in the lighter weight classes, you tend to not only have to have an impressive level of musculature, you also have to be able to maintain that level of musculature while being lean. So think of it like this. There's that study about FFMI, which is the fat-free mass index, which talks about how big natural athletes can possibly get. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the study that, threw out a number of perhaps, say, around 25 as some sort of a limit or litmus test to see if someone's using drugs, but it does help us illustrate an important point here, and that is this. While remaining lean, there's a certain percentage of athletes that can hit an FFMI of 25. There's another larger percentage that can hit an FFMI of 24. There's another even larger percentage of athletes that can hit an FFMI of 23. And this is all while staying lean. However, there's another way to think about this too. There's a certain percentage of athletes that can hit an FFMI of 25 while at 10% body fat. There's another larger percentage of athletes that can hit an FFMI of 25 at 15% body fat. And there's still yet another larger group that with a body fat of, say, 25% can hit an FFMI of 25 while being natural. So this is where things get really interesting because, again, due to higher participation rates of shorter athletes, in the lighter weight classes, you get guys who are short, lean, and big who dominate. And this is pretty much the trend all the way up until about 83 or 93 kilos, where Lane Norton often wins in the IPF at that 93 kilo mark, and he's like 5'10", 5'11", while being 205 lean. But let's be honest, if Jesse Norris showed up that day, Jesse Norris is the best 93 kilo lifter in the world, 205 pounds, and Jesse Norris is like 5'9", which Lane Norton, like I said, about 180 centimeters, and Jesse Norris is something like, 176, 175. So you can see that really all the way up to that 93 kilo weight class, and there's a few freaks out there, shorter freaks, who maybe if they were 5-6 inches taller or, another 10 centimeters taller could be professional athletes. But as soon as you get to the 105 kilo weight class, and especially the 120 kilo weight class, which are 231 pounds and 264 pounds respectively, the rules start to change because there just isn't anybody that can both have a high FFMI and be lean in that 120 or that 105 kilo 231 pound weight class. The only exception is Krzysztof Wierzbicki, and I'm sorry if I just butchered his name, from Poland, and even that guy, who is about 5'11", 180 centimeters tall, does not fill out the 105 weight class. He is lean, but that's only because he weighs in light. He weighs 101 kilos, so he gets up to 220 to 225 in pounds, but he's not at the top of the weight class cutting water weight while also remaining lean. And so you get this interesting thing that happens where, due to the lack of taller athletes who can fill out these weight classes while being lean, probably because they're doing things that pay them real money, you get instead gifted shorter athletes people who can have FFMIs, let's say, of 26, of 27, but only when they're fat, who dominate these weight classes, or who at least do very well in these weight classes. Because let's be honest, Christoph is still the best 105 in the world in the IPF. So but his competitors, you'll find, are not relatively lean compared to him at all. And you have guys like Bryce Lewis, who's, maybe 170 centimeters tall, 5'6", 5'7", who competes as a 105, and his body fat is well over 20%, but he's got a crazy amount of muscle for that height. And so you get to this point where, sure, there might be people in the IPF right now who are taller that have the genetics to have an FFMI of 23 or 24 in that 105 kilo weight class. And even though they're lean, they still have less muscle mass per unit of height than that shorter, fatter lifter who, by being fat, can say pushes FFMI from 25 to 26 or to 27. So you get a gifted, shorter athlete who's fatter beating a taller person with more average genetics, at least average in terms of their ability to hold muscle mass while lean. And now as soon as you get to that 120 kilo weight class, there's just nobody in powerlifting, natural powerlifting right now, who seems to be able to fill that out while remaining relatively lean. And again, a big part of that is that if you could find somebody who was 120 kilos, lean, strong as hell, which is 264 pounds, that person's going to be like a pro wrestler at the very least, but probably playing pro sports somewhere, doing something that pays big bucks for being that big and that strong. So you get the same scenario where you get guys who are really tall, let's say, closer to that 190 centimeter mark, or like 6'5", 6'6", and maybe you get guys who are this tall who could be kind of lean at that 120 kilo mark, but they're going against guys who are kind of tall, that 180 centimeter, 180 to 185 centimeter range. So guys that are, about 6 foot to 6'1", 6'2", who are, or even sometimes shorter than that, who are really pretty fat, but they can have really impressive FFMIs while being fat. And those really tall lifters who are already rare anyway, who might only have average genetics for holding muscle, come in at 120 with an FFMI of 23, 22. And again, these numbers are not absolute. I'm just making this up, the numbers. It's just to illustrate the point. Going against a fatter lifter at 180 centimeters with an FFMI of 27 or 28, an incredibly gifted guy. Maybe he can't be anywhere near that level of muscle mass when he's lean and natural, but he can be very big when he's fatter. And those shorter, even though we're talking about 180 centimeter tall athletes here, dominate at 120 kilos. And then the super tall guys who might have been, had okay levels of muscularity. Again, we'll use the FFMI thing. Let's say they had 23 or 24 FFMI at 120 kilos, so they're kind of lean. They're super tall. They just end up not being able to compete against the relatively shorter group who's fatter, and so they have to go super heavyweight. And once you have to go super heavyweight, of course, you just have to get really fucking fat, because it's a free-for-all at that point. It's an all-out war, and every pound that you gain could potentially give you a little bit more muscle. So why not just take it, as far as possible until it starts to, ruin your health or your range of motion or your ability to deadlift. But before that, you just gain as much as possible. But anyway, that's the point that I really wanted to make here, was that, in my opinion, due to a lack of participation from really gifted, taller athletes, you just don't see in the IPF people who can fill out 105 kilos lean or 120 kilos lean. So you get this interesting thing that happens where you get short or shorter people with gifted genetics, or at least a genetic gift for carrying a lot of muscle when they're fatter, beating people who have, more average genetics for holding muscle while lean. And those people who could maybe be relatively lean one weight class down end up being more competitive by being fatter in the next weight class up, because it bumps up, their ability to hold muscle, and there's nobody in that weight class that can be lean anyway. So it's not like it decreases their competitiveness, because there's no one else in the weight class that's lean at that weight either. That's my take on it, guys. I hope you found the video interesting or informative. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, my friends, have a nice day and good luck with your training. Peace.